So there I was, holding a pregnancy announcement card in one hand and watching my husband kiss another woman in the other. Turns out business trips have evolved since I last checked. Let me paint you a picture. Thursday afternoon, October 17th. Bloomington bus station, rain hammering down like God himself was having a breakdown. Me, Sabrina Hargrove, 32, neonatal ICU nurse who just worked a brutal 12-hour shift keeping preemie twins alive, standing there like an idiot with a Target card that said, "Guess what, Daddy?" Because apparently I thought surprising my husband with baby number 4 was romantic. Spoiler alert, the only person getting surprised was me. Milton was supposed to be returning from a 2-week medical technology convention in Austin. 2 weeks of me solo parenting our 4-year-old triplets, Thea, June, and Cora, while juggling night shifts, daycare pickups, and approximately 7 million loads of laundry. 2 weeks of him sending boring texts about keynote speakers and networking dinners, while I scraped Play-Doh off the ceiling and wondered if wine at 9 a.m. counted as self-care. I'd dropped the girls with my mom, who, bless her, was finally in remission after her cancer scare earlier that year, and driven to the station 30 minutes early because I was that wife. The eager one. The one who still believed her marriage was solid despite working opposite schedules, despite the exhaustion, despite the fact that we hadn't had a real conversation in months that didn't involve discussing whose turn it was to buy more goldfish crackers. The Greyhound pulled in at exactly 4:15 p.m. I watched passengers file off, college kids with oversized backpacks, elderly couples moving slowly, a businessman shouting into his phone about quarterly projections. And then, there he was, Milton Hargrove, 34 years old, 6 feet tall, dark hair that curled just right when he forgot to gel it, wearing that charcoal suit jacket I'd dry cleaned for him before he left. My husband of 6 years, father to my 3 daughters. Medical sales representative who supposedly traveled for work constantly. The man I'd met at a hospital fundraiser when I was 26, and stupid enough to believe love conquered practical concerns like, does he actually want to be a father? Or, is he capable of emotional availability? He wasn't alone. A woman descended the steps beside him. No, scratch that. She was practically attached to him. Redhead, maybe 28. Wearing designer jeans that probably cost more than my monthly grocery budget, and a cream cashmere sweater that screamed, "I have disposable income and 0 children destroying my nice things." Her manicured hand, French tips naturally, was laced through Milton's fingers like they'd done this 1,000 times. My brain short-circuited, literally froze like a computer hitting the blue screen of death. They reached the bottom step, still wrapped around each other like teenagers at prom. And that's when Milton's eyes landed on me. The color drained from his face so fast I genuinely worried he might pass out. He stopped mid-step, causing the woman, let's call her Mystery Mistress for now, to stumble slightly. "Milton?" I heard myself say, voice unnaturally calm considering my entire world was actively imploding. "You know her." The silence that followed was the kind they write about in bad romance novels. Heavy, suffocating. The kind where time stretches and you can hear your own heartbeat pounding in your ears like war drums. Mystery. Mistress looked between us, confusion flickering across her admittedly pretty face. Milton's mouth opened, closed, opened again like a fish drowning in air, and then he said the words that would replay in my head for months. "Sabrina, this is Fallon Hayes. My girlfriend. We've been together for a year and a half. A year and a half. 18 months of lies while I worked 36-hour weeks at the hospital plus constant on-call shifts keeping premature babies alive. 18 months while I single-handedly managed 3 toddlers through potty training, preschool transitions, and that horrific stomach flu incident where all 3 threw up simultaneously in the Target parking lot. 18 months while I believed my marriage was just going through a rough patch that would smooth out once work calmed down. Fallon, because apparently that's her name, like some character from a CW drama, had the absolute audacity to smile at me. Not a mean smile. Worse, a sympathetic one. "Sabrina," she said, voice dripping with practiced empathy that made me want to throat punch her. "I'm so sorry you're finding out this way. Milton was planning to tell you. We've been trying to figure out the right time. The right time. The right time. Was the right time when I was 3 months pregnant with his 4th child? Was it when the triplets had pneumonia last winter, and I spent 72 straight hours at the hospital while he was supposedly at a critical sales conference? Or maybe when my mother was going through chemo and I was driving back and forth between her house and mine, managing her medication schedule while keeping 3 4-year-olds from burning down the kitchen. How? I finally managed, looking at Milton, who still hadn't moved. When did you? We met at MedTech South, he said quietly, which, fun fact, was a real conference. I'd helped him pack for it, ironed his shirts, reminded him to bring his allergy medication. 18 months ago, April, last year, when I'd been managing the triplets' 4th birthday party planning and dealing with Cora's separation anxiety that had her screaming every morning at preschool drop-off. I traveled to Austin for work, Milton continued, and I realized with dawning horror that every single business trip for the past year and a half, the 3 to 5 day excursions that happened multiple times monthly, hadn't been work at all. Fallon works in marketing. We just connected. That's what we're calling infidelity now. How modern. Fallon shifted uncomfortably, her Tory Burch bag. I recognized it because my sister had the same one, slipping down her shoulder. Milton told me you two were separated, she said, voice wavering slightly. That you were basically roommates. That you hadn't been intimate in over a year. I laughed. Actually laughed. This unhinged sound that startled a nearby pigeon into flight. Intimate? I'm 3 months pregnant. The look on Fallon's face was almost worth the devastation. Pure shock. Betrayal. The sudden realization that maybe, just maybe, the man who'd lied to his wife might also have lied to his girlfriend. You said you barely shared a room, she whispered to Milton, backing away slightly like he'd become radioactive. It was complicated, Milton stammered, which is possibly the most useless phrase in the English language. I looked down at the card still clutched in my hand. Baby booties on the front. Guess what, Daddy? In cheerful script. I'd spent 20 minutes at Target picking it out, debating between this one and the one with tiny footprints. When were you going to tell me? I asked, surprisingly steady. Before or after baby number 4 arrived? Milton's face crumpled. Sabrina, I've been trying to find the right. There is no right time to tell your wife you've been screwing someone else for 18 months, I interrupted. Just like there's no right time to admit you've been using joint bank accounts to fund your Austin love nest. Or that every mandatory training seminar was actually a long weekend playing house with your marketing consultant. His eyes widened. He hadn't considered I might check the credit card statements. Fallon was fully backing away now. Her Pinterest-perfect life clearly not including baby mama drama at bus stations. Milton, you promised you were being honest with me. I was, he protested weakly. It's complicated. The timing is never right for honesty when you're a coward, I said, voice ice cold now. The shock was wearing off, replaced by a clarity so sharp it could cut glass. 18 months, Milton, our anniversary. Cora's 4th birthday, my mother's cancer diagnosis, Christmas. You looked me in the eye during all of those moments and lied. I didn't know how to— No, I cut him off. You didn't want to, because telling the truth meant consequences. Meant losing your comfortable setup where you had a wife handling the hard parts of life while you played boyfriend on business trips. The rain intensified, soaking through my scrubs. I hadn't even changed after my shift, but I couldn't move. Couldn't process that my marriage had been a theatrical production for a year and a half, while I'd been the only one who didn't know the script had changed. Milton took a step toward me. Sabrina, please, let me explain. Explain what? That you're a liar? That you've been stealing time from your daughters to play house with someone else? That every time I trusted you, believed you, supported you through those stressful work trips, you were actually— My voice broke. I hated that. Hated giving him the satisfaction of seeing me crack. Fallon had her phone out now, probably calling an Uber to escape this disaster. Smart move, honestly. I want a divorce, I said clearly. I want you out of the house by the time I get home. I want you to tell the girls yourself why Daddy won't be living with them anymore. And I want you to know that whatever happens next, the lawyers, the custody battles, the financial devastation, you earned every single bit of it. Sabrina, we're done, Milton. I turned and walked back to my car, that stupid pregnancy announcement card still in my hand. Behind me, I could hear Fallon's voice rising. You told me she knew. You promised me she knew. And Milton's pathetic attempts to explain. I sat in my Honda Odyssey, the minivan we'd bought together when I got pregnant with triplets, the one with Cheerios permanently embedded in the seats, and stared at that card, at the innocent baby booties, at the life I'd thought I was building. Then I opened my phone and Googled, Best Divorce Attorneys Indiana. Because if Milton thought he could destroy my life and walk away unscathed, he clearly didn't know who he'd married. I'd spent 6 years saving premature babies from death. Handling a 2-timing husband would be nothing. The drive home from that bus station felt like an out-of-body experience. You know that feeling when you're so shocked your brain just stops processing? Yeah. That was me on State Road 37, gripping the steering wheel while my phone buzzed non-stop with texts from Milton that I refused to read. I pulled into my mother's driveway in Maple Grove, a quiet neighborhood where everyone knew everyone's business, which was about to become extremely relevant. At 5:30 p.m., Mom took one look at my face and immediately ushered the triplets into the backyard with popsicles. What happened? She asked, settling me onto her floral couch that smelled like lavender and childhood safety. I told her everything. Every single detail. By the time I finished, my mother, Ruth Donnelly, 68 years old, retired elementary school teacher, breast cancer survivor, and the kind of woman who'd once made a pastor apologize for a sexist sermon, had her phone out. I'm calling Linnea Frost, she said flatly. Linnea Frost was a legend in our county, the divorce attorney who'd successfully dismantled a state senator's finances after he left his wife for an intern, the woman who'd gotten full custody and the lake house for a client whose husband claimed he was too busy with work to parent. If you needed someone destroyed legally and thoroughly, Linnea was your weapon of choice. Mom, I can't afford— I'm paying, she interrupted. Consider it your inheritance coming early. Besides, I've been waiting 6 years for an excuse to dislike Milton. He never laughed at my jokes. That almost made me smile. Almost. By 7 p.m., I'd met with Linnea via Zoom, because apparently elite divorce attorneys work evenings when the case is juicy enough. She was exactly what I needed. Mid-50s, sharp gray suit, eyes like a shark that smelled blood in the water. Tell me about the finances, she said, pen poised over a legal pad. I pulled up our joint bank account on my laptop. We have checking, savings, and a credit card we share for household expenses. Milton has his own card for work-related costs that his company reimburses. But not everything on that card was legitimate, Linnea finished. Smart. Print every statement from the last 18 months. I want receipts for every Austin hotel, every romantic dinner, every piece of jewelry that didn't end up on your finger. Over the next 3 days, Friday through Sunday, I became a forensic accountant. While Milton stayed at a Holiday Inn, karma's a beautiful thing, I compiled evidence. And, oh, what evidence it was. $23,000. That's how much he'd spent on Fallon over 18 months using our joint household card. Luxury hotels, the Driscoll, the Four Seasons Austin. Restaurants I'd never heard of with prix-fixe menus that cost more than our weekly grocery budget. A weekend trip to Cabo San Lucas in March that he'd told me was mandatory corporate training. Even a Tiffany bracelet purchased last Valentine's Day, while I'd gotten gas station flowers and a card that said, sorry, forgot it was today. But the absolute cherry on top? Every romantic gesture for his mistress had been funded by money that should have gone to our family expenses. Money I'd assumed was being managed responsibly while I focused on keeping our daughters fed, clothed, and not feral. This is gold, Linnea said during our Monday morning meeting at her downtown office. Indiana is an equitable distribution state, which means marital assets get divided fairly, and misuse of joint funds for extramarital affairs absolutely factors into that calculation. What about the girls? I asked. That was my real concern. Not the money, not the house. Just making sure my daughters didn't get destroyed by their father's selfishness. Primary custody will almost certainly go to you, Linnea said confidently. Father who's been essentially absent for 18 months, using work as cover for an affair? Plus, he travels constantly for actual work. Any judge will see you're the stable parent. That should have felt like a victory. It mostly felt like grief. The girls, bless their oblivious 4-year-old hearts, kept asking when Daddy was coming home. I'd told them he was staying somewhere else for a little while because Mommy and Daddy need space. June, the sensitive one, cried herself to sleep that first weekend. Thea, my little detective, kept asking pointed questions I wasn't ready to answer. And Cora just got quieter, which somehow felt worse. Milton, to his credit, and I use that term loosely, tried to explain himself. He showed up at the house that Wednesday evening, October 23rd, looking like he'd aged 5 years in 6 days. "Can we talk?" he asked through the screen door. I hadn't changed the locks yet. Linnea advised against anything that could be construed as hostility before the legal paperwork was filed. "You have 5 minutes," I said, not letting him inside. "Girls are at Mom's." He slumped against the porch railing. "Sabrina, I never meant for this to happen." "Which part? The affair or getting caught?" "I was unhappy," he said. Like that explained everything. "We barely saw each other. You were always working or with the girls. I felt invisible." I laughed. That same unhinged sound from the bus station. "You felt invisible?" "Milton, I've been invisible for 4 years. Do you know what it's like raising triplets essentially alone? Do you have any idea how many times I called you at those conferences desperate for help, and you couldn't answer because you were too busy pretending to be single in Austin? That's not fair. What's not fair is me working night shifts so you could have the better schedule for your sales territory. What's not fair is me handling every pediatrician appointment, every tantrum, every sleepless night while you built a fantasy life with someone who doesn't know what it's like to find Cheerios in her bra." He flinched. "Fallon and I broke up. Congratulations. Want a medal?" "She didn't know I was lying to her too," he continued. "She genuinely thought we were separated. When she found out about the pregnancy, she ended it. Said she couldn't trust me. The irony was so thick I could have served it at Thanksgiving. So, let me get this straight. Your girlfriend dumped you for lying, and now you want sympathy from the wife you lied to for 18 months? I want to work this out," he said desperately. "For the girls. We can go to counseling. I'll quit traveling." "No. Sabrina, you don't get to blow up our marriage and then decide you want to fix it because your backup plan fell through," I said coldly. "You made a choice. Multiple choices. Every single time you booked a flight to Austin, every time you lied about where you were, every time you came home and pretended everything was fine. I still love you. You love the idea of me. The wife who handles everything so you don't have to. But you don't love me. You never asked what I needed. Never noticed I was drowning. You just took and took and took until there was nothing left. And then you went looking for someone shiny and new who didn't need anything from you." "Ha!" His face crumpled. "Good. I wanted him to hurt the way I'd hurt every single day since that bus station. The divorce papers will be served next week," I continued. "Linnea's filing for primary custody with supervised visitation initially, spousal support, child support, an equitable distribution of assets that factors in your misuse of marital funds. If you want to be in these girls' lives, you'll cooperate. If you fight me, I will bury you." I closed the door on his face, literally and metaphorically. By early November, the legal machinery was in motion. Milton got served at work, Linnea's idea, maximum humiliation, and apparently had a very public breakdown in front of his sales team. His boss called him in for a meeting about some irregularities in his expense reports. Turns out, claiming personal expenses as business costs, even when you later paid them back yourself, violated company policy. Milton didn't get fired, but he got demoted. No more territory management, no more travel, just local sales calls and a pay cut that made his child support obligations very, very painful. Meanwhile, I was dealing with my own nightmare, being visibly pregnant while everyone in town gossiped about the divorce. You haven't lived until you've had to explain to your daughter's preschool teacher why Daddy isn't coming to the Halloween parade while your belly grows with his 4th child. The absolute worst was running into Melissa Crane at Kroger in mid-November. Melissa, whose daughter was in the triplets preschool class, cornered me in the produce section with that fake concerned expression suburban moms perfect like an Olympic sport. "Sabrina, sweetie, I heard about you and Milton," she stage whispered, loud enough for half the store to hear. "How are you holding up? You look exhausted. Translation: You look terrible, and I'm loving every minute of this drama. I'm fantastic, I said brightly, tossing avocados into my cart. Divorce agrees with me. Really helps you figure out who your real friends are. She blinked. Oh, well, if you ever need anything, I'll call someone who didn't immediately text the preschool parent group chat. I finished sweetly. Have a blessed day, Melissa. Her face went scarlet. Worth it. But the moment that really tested me came during Thanksgiving week. Milton's mother, Patricia Hargrove, 72, queen of passive-aggressive comments disguised as concern, called me on Tuesday, November 19th. Sabrina, dear, Milton told me about the separation, she began, voice dripping with false sympathy. I just want you to know I'm praying for you both to work through this rough patch. Rough patch. As if 18 months of infidelity was equivalent to arguing about whose turn it was to take out the trash. It's not a rough patch, Patricia. It's a divorce. Milton had an affair. Silence. Then, well, marriages take work. I'm sure you both made mistakes. I made the mistake of trusting him. He made the mistake of sleeping with someone else for a year and a half. Those aren't equivalent. There's no need to be hostile, dear. I'm just saying, for the sake of those girls, maybe you should consider... Consider what? Teaching my daughters that women should tolerate betrayal for the sake of keeping a man? That we should light ourselves on fire to keep others warm? Patricia, with all due respect, your son is a liar who prioritized his happiness over his family's well-being. I'm done protecting his reputation. I hung up. My hands were shaking, but I felt weirdly proud. By the first week of December, the preliminary custody arrangement was set. I had the girls Sunday through Friday. Milton got Saturday mornings through Sunday afternoons, supervised by his mother for the first month. The court wanted to ensure he could actually handle solo parenting before granting unsupervised time. The first handoff was pathetic. Milton showed up at my house on Saturday, December 7th looking nervous. The girls were excited. They hadn't seen much of him in weeks. But within 20 minutes of them leaving, my phone rang. Patricia. Sabrina, what do the girls eat for lunch? I closed my eyes. There's a list in the diaper bag. Sandwiches, fruit, yogurt. Nothing complicated. And nap time? 1 p.m. Details are in the folder I sent Milton last week. He didn't mention a folder. Of course he didn't, I muttered. Check the front pocket of June's backpack. Everything's there. Schedules, dietary restrictions, emergency contacts, pediatrician information. The fact that I had to create a manual for their own father to spend 6 hours with them said everything. But here's the thing about rock bottom. It's surprisingly clarifying. By mid-December, I wasn't just surviving. I was strategizing. Linnea had compiled a case so airtight that Milton's lawyer was already pushing for settlement negotiations. The evidence was overwhelming. Financial misconduct, parental negligence, documented lies. He'll fight the spousal support, Linnea warned during our December 12th meeting. Claim you make enough as a nurse. Let him fight, I said. I've got receipts for every time he worked late while I paid for childcare. Every business trip while I covered his portion of household expenses. Every lie that cost our family money and stability. She smiled. That shark smile again. I like your energy. Let's destroy him. And that's exactly what we did. I carefully folded that Target pregnancy card and tucked it into my desk drawer that night. Not as a sentimental keepsake, but as a reminder. A reminder that I'd been willing to celebrate our growing family while he'd been busy dismantling it. A reminder that I deserved someone who showed up, not someone who disappeared. The thing about divorce is that it forces you to look at bank statements you'd previously trusted without question. And when you're a sleep-deprived ICU nurse who'd been operating on autopilot for years, you miss things, important things. I discovered the real bomb on December 18th, a Wednesday evening after the girls went to bed. I was going through our tax returns for Linnea, cross-referencing them with the financial documentation we'd compiled, when something caught my eye. A quarterly bonus Milton had received in April, $8,000, that never appeared in our joint account. I pulled up his individual account, the one he'd opened for work-related savings that I'd never bothered monitoring because I trusted him. Big mistake. Massive. The April bonus was there. So was another from July, $6,000, and one from October, right before his Austin trip where I caught him, for $7,000. $21,000 in bonuses over the past year that he'd never mentioned. Money that should have been marital assets, hidden in an account only he controlled. My hands started shaking. Not from anger, from excitement. Because this wasn't just infidelity anymore. This was financial fraud. Deliberate concealment of marital assets during marriage, which in Indiana meant the court could award me a significantly larger share of everything. I called Linnea immediately. She answered on the second ring despite it being 8 p.m. "Please tell me you found something good," she said. I could hear the smile in her voice. Hidden bonuses. 21,000 over the past year, never disclosed. Send me screenshots now. I did. Within 30 seconds, she was laughing. Actually laughing. "Sabrina, your husband is an idiot. This is concealment of assets. The court is going to eat him alive." What does this mean practically? It means instead of a 50-50 split of marital property, you're looking at potentially 65, maybe 70%. Plus, this strengthens our case for spousal support since he clearly had income he was hiding. And here's the beautiful part. If he lied about this, the judge will assume he's lying about everything else. I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Hope. Real, tangible hope that maybe karma wasn't just a concept people posted about on Instagram. But I wasn't stupid. Milton was going to fight back, and I needed to be prepared for whatever he threw at me. So I started documenting everything. And I mean everything. Every text message where he promised to pick up the girls and then canceled last minute. Every missed video call during his work trips that were actually Fallon visits. Every time he'd sworn he was at a client dinner when our joint card receipts showed romantic restaurants. I created a spreadsheet, color-coded, cross-referenced, with timestamps and supporting evidence for every single lie. My sister Dana, who worked in digital forensics for a tech company in Indianapolis, helped me recover deleted messages from an old backup of Milton's phone that he'd synced to our shared iCloud account years ago and apparently forgotten about. Turns out, he'd been texting Fallon from that phone before he got smart and bought a separate device. "This is pathetic," Dana said, scrolling through messages on December 20th while we sat in my kitchen. "He's literally complaining about you to her while you're handling everything. What kind of person—" "Wait," I interrupted, looking at a date stamp. "Go back. That message. When is it from?" She checked. "April, year and a half ago, right when you said they met." But as I read through the recovered messages, something became clear. Milton and Fallon had met at that MedTech South conference 18 months ago in April, exactly like he'd said. But the tone of those early messages, the way they talked, the references they made, suggested this wasn't their first conversation. There were inside jokes, callbacks to previous discussions, a familiarity that doesn't develop in a weekend conference. "Dana, can you check if there are older messages? Before April last year?" She worked her magic with the backup files. And there they were. Messages dating back 3 years. Casual at first. Conference connections, industry gossip, professional networking, but gradually becoming more personal, more frequent, more intimate. "So they didn't start dating 18 months ago," I said slowly. "They started emotionally connecting 3 years ago. The affair just became physical 18 months ago. Which means he was already checking out of your marriage long before," Dana finished. "God, Sabrina. I'm so sorry. The worst part? 3 years ago was right after the triplets were born. Right when I needed him most, he was already looking elsewhere. I kept digging through the messages, my stomach turning with each new revelation. But then I found something that made me physically ill. A message from Milton to Fallon sent late at night, dated October, 4 years ago. The same month my daughters were born. Crazy day at the hospital. Wife had emergency C-section. 3 girls. I'm supposed to be happy, but honestly I just feel trapped. Wish I was back in Austin with you instead of dealing with this." I read it 3 times. Then a 4th. He'd texted his— what? His emotional affair partner? While I was recovering from major surgery to deliver his children. Children he felt trapped by. "I need to sit down," I said, even though I was already sitting. "You are sitting," Dana pointed out gently. "Then I need to lie down. Or drink. Or both." She grabbed my hand. "Sabrina, I know this hurts. But legally, this is ammunition. This proves he was emotionally unfaithful even earlier. This shows he was already checked out when your daughters were born. Any judge will see this man has never been a present father. She was right. But knowing something intellectually and processing it emotionally are two completely different things. That night, after Dana left, I did something I probably shouldn't have. I looked up Fallon Hayes on social media. Her Instagram was public, because of course it was, she was in marketing, and I scrolled through 18 months of her perfectly curated life. Beach photos in Cabo from March, the trip Milton told me was corporate training. Brunch photos at fancy Austin restaurants every weekend he claimed to be at conferences. A photo from last Christmas at a ski resort in Colorado with the caption, "Best holiday ever," while I was home with 3 sick toddlers and my mother recovering from her mastectomy. But the photo that broke something in me was from Valentine's Day. Fallon, wearing that Tiffany bracelet, smiling at the camera with the caption, "When he remembers all your favorites." The date stamp, February 14th, 7 p.m. The same night, Milton had come home at 9 with gas station flowers and a half-hearted apology for forgetting. He hadn't forgotten. He'd just already celebrated with someone else. I screenshot everything. Sent it to Linnea with a note. Additional evidence of timeline and expenditures. Her response was immediate. "You're my favorite client. I'm going to make him cry in court." By Christmas Eve, I had an entire legal arsenal compiled. But I also had 3 little girls who wanted to know why Daddy wasn't helping decorate the tree. June kept asking if Santa would know to bring presents to Daddy's new house, too. Thea had stopped talking about him entirely, which worried me more. And Cora had started wetting the bed again, something she hadn't done in over a year. Milton had them on Christmas Day, his first unsupervised visit after passing the month-long supervised trial. He picked them up at 9 a.m., promised to have them back by 6 p.m., and showed up at 8:30 with 3 exhausted, sugar-crashed kids who'd apparently spent the entire day at his mother's house watching movies while he handled some work calls. "You had them for 1 day," I said quietly at the door, while Patricia carried a sleeping Cora inside. 1 day. And you couldn't even manage that without pawning them off on your mother. I had an emergency client situation. On Christmas Day? Try again. He looked exhausted. Good. I wanted him to understand what exhaustion felt like, what being the only responsible parent felt like, what watching your children suffer because of choices you made felt like. "The preliminary hearing is January 9th, I said. "Linnea's filing the updated financials tomorrow. Hidden bonuses, concealed assets, evidence of emotional infidelity dating back to when the girls were born. You should probably get a better lawyer." His face went pale. Did you really think I wouldn't find out? You used our shared iCloud account, Milton. Every backup, every deleted message, every complaint about feeling trapped by your own children. I have all of it. Sabrina, please. Please what? Please don't tell the judge you've been lying since our daughters were born. Please don't present evidence that you hid $21,000 in bonuses. Please don't show the court that you were texting your affair partner while I was in surgery delivering your children. He actually staggered backward. You saw that? I saw everything. Every lie. Every betrayal. Every moment you chose her over us. I kept my voice level, clinical even. The way I talked to parents in the NICU when I had to deliver devastating news. You don't get to rewrite this story. You don't get to play victim. You made choices, and now you get to live with consequences. Patricia emerged from putting the girls to bed, shooting me a look that could have curdled milk. Sabrina, there's no need to be cruel. Cruel would be doing to him what he did to me, I interrupted. I'm just being honest. There's a difference. After they left, I sat in my living room surrounded by half-decorated Christmas decorations and felt something shift. Not forgiveness. I wasn't there yet. Might never be. But clarity. Milton was going to lose this divorce badly because he'd been arrogant enough to think I'd never find out. Never fight back, never value myself enough to demand better. He'd underestimated me. They all had. On New Year's Eve, while the girls slept and the neighborhood shot off fireworks, I got a text from an unknown number. My first instinct was to delete it, but curiosity won. "This is Fallon Hayes. I know you probably hate me, but I need to tell you something about Milton." I stared at that message for a full minute before responding. "I'm listening." What came next was a novel-length confession. Fallon, to her credit, laid out everything. how Milton had maintained contact with her for 3 years after that initial conference, claiming to be in an unhappy marriage, how he'd love-bombed her when they finally met again 18 months ago, showed her fake apartment listings he was supposedly viewing, how he'd created an entire fictional narrative about a wife who was cold and distant, focused only on her career, practically roommates who stayed together for financial convenience. "He told me you'd agreed to divorce after the holidays last year," she wrote, "that you were just waiting for the right time to tell family. I genuinely believed I was dating a man in the process of leaving his marriage, not destroying one." She sent screenshots of their conversations. Milton spinning elaborate lies about our relationship, our sex life, my supposed emotional unavailability, painting himself as the victim of a loveless marriage when the reality was he'd simply stopped trying the moment parenting got difficult. "I only found out the truth at that bus station," Fallon continued. "Everything he told me was a lie. The separation, the roommate situation, definitely the part about you two not being intimate. When I confronted him after, he admitted he'd been lying to both of us. I ended it immediately. 'Why are you telling me this?' I typed back. 'Because he's been calling me non-stop since Christmas, saying you're trying to destroy him in court, that you're being vindictive, that if I'd just testify that our relationship was his way of coping with a dead marriage, it would help his case. He wants me to lie for him. To a judge.' I actually laughed out loud. Milton was so desperate he was asking his ex-mistress to commit perjury. 'I'm not testifying for him,' Fallon wrote, 'but I will testify for you if it helps. Everything he told me, every lie, every manipulation, I kept records because something always felt off. If you want them, they're yours.' I sat there in the dark, watching fireworks explode outside my window and typed, 'Send everything.' She did. Hundreds of messages. Voice memos where Milton badmouthed me. Photos of gifts he'd bought her with our money. A spreadsheet. She'd made a spreadsheet, tracking his stories to check for inconsistencies because even she didn't fully trust him. The woman my husband had an affair with was handing me the nuclear option. 'Why?' I asked finally. 'Why help me?' Her response came quickly. 'Because I was lied to, too. Because I don't want other women to go through what we went through. And honestly, because watching a man who thought he was untouchable face consequences is deeply satisfying.' I couldn't argue with that logic. By January 2nd, Linnea had incorporated Fallon's testimony into our case strategy. The preliminary hearing on January 9th wasn't just about custody and support anymore. It was about establishing a pattern of deception so comprehensive that Milton's credibility was completely destroyed. "This is unprecedented," Linnea said during our prep meeting on January 6th. "The affair partner testifying against the cheating spouse? I've never seen it. Judges love redemption narratives. What are our chances?" She smiled that shark smile. "Sabrina, I don't deal in chances. I deal in certainties. And I can tell you with absolute certainty that your husband is going to regret ever underestimating you. The Monroe County Courthouse looks exactly like every other Midwestern government building. Imposing limestone exterior, fluorescent-lit hallways that smell like floor wax and broken dreams, and a pervasive sense that justice moves at the speed of continental drift. I walked in on Thursday, January 9th, at 8:45 a.m., 15 minutes early because punctuality is apparently genetic, and my mother raised me right. Linnea met me in the lobby wearing a navy suit that screamed, "I bill $400 an hour and I'm worth every penny." "Ready?" she asked, handing me a coffee from the good place downtown, not the courthouse vending machine sludge. "I've kept premature twins alive through sepsis," I said. "I can handle one mediocre man and his bargain bin attorney." She grinned. "That's my girl." Milton arrived at 8:58 with his lawyer, Gregory Barnes, a guy who specialized in uncontested divorces and small claims disputes, which made sense because he was the only attorney Milton could still afford after draining his savings. Gregory looked nervous, probably having realized overnight that he was walking into a massacre. Milton looked worse than I'd ever seen him. Weight loss, dark circles, cheapest suit from his closet because the good ones probably got repossessed along with his dignity. Patricia was with him naturally. She shot me a look that could have stripped paint. I smiled back sweetly and sipped my overpriced latte. Judge Angela Morrison, mid-60s, former prosecutor, notorious for her zero-tolerance policy on financial deception, Took the bench at 9 a.m. sharp. I'd looked her up. She'd once awarded a wife 85% of marital assets after her husband hit a boat purchase. Milton's hidden bonuses were about to ruin his whole year. "This is a preliminary hearing for Hargrove versus Hargrove," Judge Morrison began, reading from her file. "We're here to establish temporary custody, support, and address allegations of asset concealment. Mrs. Hargrove, your attorney may proceed." Linnea stood, and I swear the temperature in the room dropped 5 degrees. "Your Honor, we're seeking primary physical custody of the 3 minor children, temporary spousal support, child support, and an unequal division of assets based on evidence of substantial marital misconduct and financial fraud." Gregory Barnes, poor guy, he looked like he'd just realized he was about to get destroyed, stood quickly. "Your Honor, those are serious allegations. My client disputes." "Then he shouldn't have hidden $21,000 in bonuses," Linnea interrupted smoothly, sliding documents across the bench. "Bank statements showing quarterly bonuses deposited into an individual account Mrs. Hargrove had no access to. Tax returns listing income that was never disclosed to her. Deliberate concealment of marital assets during the marriage." Judge Morrison's expression didn't change, but she took her time reviewing the documents. The silence was excruciating. I could hear Milton breathing heavily from across the room. "Mr. Barnes, do you have an explanation for these undisclosed bonuses?" the judge asked finally. Gregory looked at Milton, who looked like a deer in headlights. "Your Honor, my client maintains that account for work-related savings. Work-related savings don't include quarterly performance bonuses that should have been disclosed as marital income," Judge Morrison said dryly. "These are clearly employment compensation. Continue, Ms. Frost." Linnea was just getting started. She presented our joint credit card statements next. Every Austin hotel, every romantic dinner, every gift purchased for Fallon using money that should have gone to family expenses. Then came the real kicker, the timeline. "Your Honor, Mr. Hargrove claims his affair began 18 months ago. However, we have evidence of emotional infidelity dating back 4 years, to when Mrs. Hargrove gave birth to their triplet daughters." She submitted the recovered text messages, including the one where Milton complained about feeling trapped while I was recovering from emergency surgery. The judge read them silently, her jaw tightening with each line. "Mr. Hargrove," Judge Morrison said, voice ice cold, "did you send romantic messages to Ms. Hayes while your wife was in the hospital after delivering your children?" Milton stammered. Your Honor, I was stressed." "That's not the question. Did you or did you not communicate inappropriately with another woman during your wife's medical crisis?" "Yes, but—" "There is no but that makes that acceptable," the judge snapped. "Continue, Ms. Frost." The next hour was a masterclass in legal demolition. Linnea presented evidence of every lie, every hidden expense, every moment of parental negligence. She showed the court that Milton had traveled approximately 75 days over the past 18 months, days he claimed were mandatory work travel, but were actually visits to Fallon. Days when I handled every school pickup, every doctor's appointment, every midnight fever check alone. Then came the piece de resistance, Fallon's testimony. She appeared via video call. Linnea's idea, less dramatic but equally effective. Fallon looked nervous but determined, sitting in what appeared to be a professional office setting with good lighting. "Ms. Hayes," Linnea began, "please state your relationship with Milton Hargrove." "We were involved romantically for approximately 18 months, Fallon said clearly. "From April 2 years ago until October last year, when I discovered he'd lied to me about being separated from his wife." "And what did Mr. Hargrove tell you about his marriage?" "He said they were essentially roommates, that they'd agreed to divorce but were waiting for the right timing, that they hadn't been intimate in over a year, and were only staying together for financial convenience until they could separate amicably." "And you believed this?" "Yes. He showed me apartment listings he claimed to be viewing, talked about custody arrangements he was supposedly negotiating. He maintained contact with me for 3 years before we became physically involved, building trust over time. He was very convincing." Linnea pulled up the bus station photo. Yes, someone had taken a photo that went semi-viral in local Facebook groups because apparently my humiliation was content. "Is this the moment you discovered the truth?" Fallon's face went pale. "Yes. I had no idea she was pregnant. No idea the children were only 4 years old. No idea he'd been actively lying to both of us the entire time. And after you ended the relationship, did Mr. Hargrove contact you? Repeatedly. Starting around Christmas, he began calling and texting, asking me to testify that our relationship was justified because his marriage was already over. He wanted me to lie to the court. Judge Morrison's expression went from stern to absolutely livid. Mr. Hargrove, did you attempt to solicit false testimony? Gregory Barnes looked like he wanted to dissolve into the floor. Milton just sat there, mouth opening and closing like a goldfish. Your Honor, your client is digging himself into a hole, Judge Morrison interrupted. I suggest he stop talking before I add contempt charges to his problems. The final blow came when Linnea presented the financial impact analysis. $23,000 on Fallon, $21,000 hidden in bonuses, thousands more in questionable expenses. All told, Milton had misappropriated nearly $50,000 of marital assets while I worked night shifts and raised 3 children essentially alone. Your Honor, Linnea concluded, Mrs. Hargrove isn't seeking revenge. She's seeking fairness. She's seeking recognition that while she was saving premature infants' lives and raising triplets alone, her husband was building a secret life funded by their joint finances. She's seeking primary custody because she's been the only present parent for 4 years, and she's seeking an equitable distribution that reflects his deliberate deception. Judge Morrison took exactly 30 seconds to review her notes before speaking. I'm granting temporary orders as follows. Mrs. Hargrove receives primary physical custody. Mr. Hargrove will have supervised visitation every other weekend pending completion of a parenting class and psychological evaluation. Milton's face went white. Temporary spousal support is set at $2,000 monthly. Child support at $1,800 monthly. Mr. Hargrove is responsible for all child care costs, health insurance, and extracurricular activities. Gregory Barnes started to object. The judge silenced him with a look. Furthermore, I'm ordering a forensic accounting of all marital assets. If additional concealment is discovered, I will revisit the asset division with extreme prejudice. Final divorce hearing is scheduled for April 15th. Mr. Hargrove, I suggest you spend the next 3 months being completely honest for the first time in 4 years. Dismissed. The gavel came down like thunder. Milton looked shattered. Patricia was already on her phone, probably calling every family member to spin this as somehow my fault. Gregory was packing his briefcase with the frantic energy of someone who regretted taking this case. And me? I felt lighter than I had in years. Outside the courthouse, Linnea pulled me aside. That was a slaughter. Morrison basically pre-ruled the final divorce in your favor. At this point, Milton's only smart move is settling because if this goes to full trial, he'll lose even more. What are we talking percentage-wise? Realistically, you're looking at 70% of assets, possibly more depending on what forensic accounting finds. The house, primary vehicle, majority of savings and retirement accounts. He'll be lucky to walk away with his clothes and that mediocre sedan. My phone buzzed. A text from my mother. How did it go? I typed back. Justice. The fallout was immediate and spectacular. Milton's boss, who'd been monitoring the situation after the expense report investigation, called him in that afternoon. Apparently, having your financial misconduct exposed in court doesn't inspire employer confidence. Milton wasn't fired, but he was transferred to the least desirable territory in the state. Rural southern Indiana. Mandatory 40-hour weekly minimum in the field. No flexibility, no bonuses, no perks. His mother tried calling me that evening. I let it go to voicemail. Her message was predictably awful. Accusations of vindictiveness, claims I was alienating the children from their father, threats about grandparents' rights. I forwarded it to Linnea with a note. Evidence of harassment for the file. The suburban gossip mill went nuclear. Melissa Crane, the Kroger produce aisle busybody, apparently tried posting a vague Facebook status about both sides of every story. 3 people immediately commented with links to the public court records. She deleted her account within an hour, but the most satisfying moment came on Saturday, January 11th, during the first post-hearing custody exchange. Milton showed up at 9 a.m. to collect the girls, looking exhausted. Hey, he said quietly at the door. Supervised visitation means your mother needs to be present, I reminded him. Those are the court orders. She's in the car. Sabrina, can we talk? Our lawyers can talk. That's what I pay Linnea for. I want you to know I'm sorry. For all of it. I looked at him, really looked at him, and saw a man who'd gambled everything on getting away with lies and lost spectacularly. You're not sorry you did it. You're sorry you got caught. There's a difference. That's not fair. Fair was me working night shifts while you pretended to be at conferences. Fair was me raising our daughters alone while you built a fantasy life. Fair was me trusting you completely while you hid money and lied to my face for 4 years. You don't get to redefine fair now that consequences arrived. Thea appeared behind me, backpack ready. Is Daddy here? Yeah, sweetheart. Grandma Patricia's in the car too. She nodded solemnly. My observant little girl who noticed everything. Are you okay, Mama? I'm perfect, baby. Go have fun. After they left, I sat in my kitchen, my house, which I'd keep in the final divorce, and felt something unexpected. Gratitude. Gratitude that I'd found out. Gratitude that I'd fought back. Gratitude that my daughters would grow up watching their mother refuse to accept less than she deserved. The preliminary hearing was just the beginning. The final divorce in April would cement everything. But sitting there in my quiet house, baby number 4 doing somersaults in my belly at 5 months along, I realized something important. I'd already won. April 15th arrived with the kind of poetic timing that makes you believe the universe has a sense of humor. Tax day and divorce day, both requiring detailed financial documentation, both involving getting what you're owed. I walked into that courthouse at 8:30 a.m., 8 months pregnant and wearing a maternity dress that cost more than Milton's entire legal defense. The forensic accounting had uncovered another $12,000 Milton forgot to mention. Combined with everything else, the judge awarded me 72% of all marital assets. 72%. The house became mine. The Honda Odyssey stayed with me. Our savings, retirement funds, even the decent furniture. Milton got his sedan, the bedroom set from his mother, and approximately 30% after legal fees. Judge Morrison's final ruling included a line I had framed later. Mr. Hargrove's pattern of deception, financial fraud, and parental negligence demonstrates a fundamental failure of character. The custody arrangement was finalized. Primary physical custody to me, supervised visitation for Milton every other weekend until he completed court-mandated parenting classes and therapy. Spoiler alert, it took him 14 months because he kept missing appointments. Walking out of that courthouse for the last time felt like shedding a 100-pound weight. Linnea hugged me and said, "You should be proud. You fought back when most people would have just accepted whatever he offered." My son, yes, baby number 4 was a boy, was born on May 2nd. 8 pounds, healthy lungs, and a surprising amount of dark hair. I named him Owen, after my grandfather who taught me that self-respect isn't negotiable. Milton wasn't at the hospital. He'd asked via text, but I declined. Some moments are too sacred to share with people who've proven they don't deserve access to your vulnerability. My mother was there. Dana was there. Even Linnea sent flowers. The girls fell in love with Owen immediately. Thea appointed herself assistant mother, constantly checking if he was breathing. June sang to him every night. Cora just wanted to hold him constantly. By Owen's 6-month mark in November, I'd settled into a rhythm I never thought possible as a single mother of 4. My mom helped with childcare. Dana took the girls every other weekend. I'd even started dating again. Nothing serious, just reminders that I was still a person beyond mother and night shift nurse. The girls adjusted better than I expected. Thea told me once during bedtime, "I'm glad Daddy doesn't live here anymore. It's quieter." 5 years old and already understanding that peace is better than performance. Milton bottomed out spectacularly before slowly climbing back to basic functionality. The rural territory assignment lasted 8 months before he requested a transfer back, with a pay cut. He moved into a smaller apartment. He started actually showing up to therapy after the court threatened contempt charges. By the time Owen turned 1, Milton had finally graduated to unsupervised visits. Every other weekend, alternating holidays. Standard divorced dad arrangement. He was better with the kids than during our marriage, probably because he finally understood that actual parenting was required. The most unexpected development came from Fallon. About a year after the divorce finalized, she texted, "I'm in therapy dealing with my part in what happened. I'm sorry for believing his lies without questioning them harder. You deserved better. I responded, we both deserved better. But at least we both learned what red flags look like now. A biggest red flag? She wrote back. Men who make their wives the villain in every story, I replied, because if everyone else is always the problem, they're definitely the problem. Instead of looking for someone new, I focused on making myself happy. Took the girls to Chicago for a weekend trip. Enrolled in a nurse practitioner program. Started going to a book club where we drank wine and pretended to discuss literature, but mostly just vented about life. One Tuesday evening in August, Owen was 3 months old, walking everywhere, the girls starting kindergarten in a week. I sat on my back porch watching them play. Thea was teaching June how to catch fireflies. Cora was showing Owen how grass worked. My mother was inside making dinner, humming off-key. And I realized, this was it. This was the life I'd fought for. Not perfect, but mine. Wholly, completely, messily mine. The final piece of closure came in October, almost exactly 2 years after the bus station incident. I ran into Melissa Crane at Target. I heard Milton got engaged, she said conspiratorially. Are you okay with that? I genuinely laughed. Melissa, I could not care less what Milton does as long as child support hits my account on time. He could marry a circus performer, and my only question would be if she does birthday parties. Her face did this fascinating thing where confusion and disappointment battled for dominance. She'd wanted drama. I'd given her indifference. That evening, tucking Thea into bed, she asked, Mama, do you think you'll get married again? Maybe someday, I said honestly. If I meet someone who treats me the way I deserve and loves you girls as much as I do. But I'm not in a hurry. Good, she said seriously. Because you're happy now. You smile more. Out of the mouths of 5-year-olds. So here I am, 2 years post-divorce, 34 years old, single mother of 4, working 3 12-hour shifts weekly, living in a house I own, driving a minivan that's paid off, with 72% of everything my ex-husband tried to hide. Could my life look different? Sure, but I didn't accept less than I deserved, because somewhere between that bus station and that courthouse, I remembered something crucial. I deserved better. My daughters deserved better. Milton's out there somewhere, probably telling his new fiancé that his ex-wife is crazy and vindictive. Patricia's probably still telling anyone who will listen that I destroyed her son's life. And Melissa Crane is definitely still gossiping at school pickup. I don't care. Because every morning I wake up in a house that's peaceful. I parent children who know their mother fought for them. I work a job that fulfills me. And I answer to exactly one person, myself. Turns out, the best revenge isn't proving them wrong. It's building a life so good you forget to care what they think about it.